Part 91. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 901. Senior, look at my magical powers in the sea. Smelling the salty and humid sea breeze in the air, Zuyun was inevitably a little excited. Along the way, he was pinched by the Zhangdao Venerable, which made him feel very uncomfortable. But before he could move his hand, he was held down by the spiritual pressure of Zhangdao Venerable. Don't move, there is an old thing. Zhangdao Venerable's expression was particularly solemn. He is a casual cultivator. Although he has interacted with some powerful people in the world, he has always been cautious as a member of the Five Elements sect. We know each other, but we're not friends. Moreover, the people of the Five Elements sect are particularly arrogant, and they are extremely disliked by free and easy people like him. He was afraid that if Zuyun made too much noise, it would attract the attention of the ancestor. It's more than 1,000 miles away, and if the opponent comes with all his strength, it probably won't take more than half an hour. Old thing. Zuyun didn't see anyone at all, and was suddenly suppressed by spiritual power, thinking that his little thoughts had been discovered. Well, the old guy from the Five Elements sect has passed through the tribulation period. He is one of the few who can tie me. I don't know if Master Zhangdao was bragging, but Zuyun believed it. He saw with his own eyes that neither Chen Tianqiao, who was in the tribulation stage, nor the Demon Dragon Emperor, who had cultivated to the extreme, was a match for the Zhangdao Master. This shows how powerful the ancestor of the Five Elements sect is. Senior, are you afraid that he will come? Zuyun asked, but at the same time he was thinking about whether it was possible to use the old thing mentioned by Zhangdao Venerable. If possible, if the two of them fight, can he get away with it? Afraid? I'm not afraid of anyone. Although that old guy is strong, his lifespan is running out. If he dares to come, I'll burn my lifespan to fight with him. I'm afraid of nothing. Zhangdao Zun looked like a scoundrel, but he indeed dared to fight. Because he told the crux of the problem, the Five Elements sect master's life is short. And if he burns longevity, his strength will definitely increase again. At most, it would trigger a catastrophe. If you can beat it, then you can beat it. If they can't beat him, where the two of them are entangled, the heavenly tribulation will also strike down the Five Elements sect master. So the one who is fighting is not the strong one, but the one who is not afraid of death. Zuyun was also dumbfounded for a while, so stunned that he was scared to death. It turns out that it is also applicable in the spiritual world. However, the premise is that you must have a certain level of strength. If he dared to do this with the Zhangdao master, he would definitely die. Zuyun shrank his neck and said, Senior, I understand now, how about you let me go now? I don't use magic. Zhangdao Venerable responded softly, withdrew his pressure and did not speak to Zuyun, but he did not make any move. The same is true for the Five Elements sect ancestors thousands of miles away. Ancestor. Beside him, a group of people in the void refining stage were waiting a little baffled, so they couldn't help but ask. They came here to grab something. For example, if the ancestors fight against giant monsters in the sea, and if they can kill one, they can take the body for themselves. This is a huge gain. From the beginning of the void refining period, the Holy Land space has no effect on them, so they enter the back mountain to practice in seclusion. And cultivation requires resources. In particular, they themselves are slow in cultivation. There is no shortage of ordinary resources. But scarce resources have great benefits. There's no rush, come with me to meet an old friend. Perhaps sensing that there was no movement from the Zhangdao master, the ancestor thought for a moment and decided to take the initiative. Of course, his original intention was not to fight. As the Zhangdao master guessed, if that guy acted rogue, he might not be able to get a good deal. However, Since the other party is here, it is obvious that he is also here for the immortal traces. Maybe we can exchange what we have with him, thus benefiting both sides. Old friend. A group of people in the void refining stage looked weird because they couldn't feel anyone's presence. But since the ancestor moved, they could only follow. Without their ancestors, they would not be able to shake the giant monster of the deep sea. An hour later, the Five Elements Patriarch took the lead and landed in front of the Zhangdao master. Ha ha ha, I wonder who it is. It turns out it's an old friend here. The Zhangdao Venerable laughed heartily, as if he was very happy to have a friend come from afar. Hypocritical. Zuyun cursed secretly in his heart, but suddenly saw the ancestor of the five elements staring at him, and couldn't help but tremble. Dirty fellow deist, long time no see, your strength has also improved a lot. The ancestor also said politely, but he was actually very surprised. Casual cultivators like Master Zhangdao who practice heretical practices usually concentrate on their cultivation and rarely meddle in other people's affairs. But there was a boy beside him who had obviously just broken through the divine stage, which made him suspicious, so he took another look. Fortunately, Zuyun turned the spiritual power in his body into Win's spiritual power early, but the ancestor did not notice it. He just continued a little strangely, dirty fellow Taoist, why do you keep a boy with Fenglingen by your side? Could it be that your clothes cannot be washed and dried, so you want this boy to help you dry them? Zuyun finally breathed a sigh of relief when he heard the words Fenglingli. The reason why he did not choose to transform into another spiritual power was because Master Zhangdao should have seen Zuyun use Win's spiritual power. As for using the so-called fabricated sea spirit power, Zuyun was thinking about the spiritual power of water spirit beads. He couldn't fool others, so he thought that coupled with the water control power of the water spirit pearl, he should be able to fool the Zhangdao master. Ha ha ha, isn't it? The Zhangdao master smiled and said, old friend, what are you doing in the sea area? Are you here to take a bath? Friend Dirty Taoist was joking, the ancestor said with a smile, a few days ago, several of my disciples came to look for a missing deacon, but they never thought that they encountered a strange phenomenon. Both Zhangdao master and Zuyun were shocked. Zuyun was surprised because the Five Elements sect actually asked people to come to Tucheng during the tribulation period, but Master Zhangdao was surprised because of the strange phenomenon in the sea. What kind of vision is it that even you are alarmed? Zhangdao master asked quickly. After cultivating to their level, strength and realm are not too important. On the contrary, various visions may give them opportunities. The two disciples in the void refining stage said that a giant monster from the deep sea was born, setting off huge waves of water and rushing into the sky, as if there was divine power in the sky that could allow them to break through the shackles. The two disciples were weak in strength and were very frightened, so I went out to take a look, but I never expected to meet a dirty fellow Taoist. Divine power. The Zhangdao Venerable's mind was so sharp that he immediately thought of the miracle that happened in the Qingmu sect. Thousands of divine lights fell from the sky, but disappeared into the depths of the Qingmu sect without leaving a trace. Later, more than 10 nascent soul stages simultaneously triggered a breakthrough in the heavenly tribulation. Then I met Chen Tianqiao and the Demon Dragon Emperor, and saw Zuyun. I felt that he was more important, so I went all the way to get here. What does fellow Taoist Dirty know? The ancestor was not weak either. He discovered something from Zhangdao Venerable's deep thoughts and asked immediately. I don't know either, the Zhangdao Venerable shook his head and said, an incredible thing happened in Tianweishan, but it ended in nothing. I was at the scene at the time and thought it was someone born on the Xianxia platform, but I didn't too much attention. But then, I didn't know anything strange happened in the wild sea. Fellow Taoist Zhang, can you tell me what the vision is? I can share my experience with you. Maybe it will be of great benefit to both you and me. Not that the ancestor is willing to share it with others. This is nothing more than an intersection of interests. He couldn't fight the Zhang master, and even if he fought, he was not sure of winning. It's better to exchange information, and whoever can find the immortal fate will depend on his or her ability. The Zhangdao Venerable told what happened in the King Mu section. There was nothing to hide. There were so many people he saw at that time. The other party could find out just by asking a little. The ancestor frowned, but Zuyun felt a storm in his heart. When he came out of the immortal mansion, he saw a group of nascent soul stages going through the heavenly tribulation, but he had no idea what had happened before. In other words, his golden tribulation thunder was not created out of thin air in the immortal mansion. Rather, it comes from the outside world. Otherwise, how could it be such a coincidence that there is a golden fairy trail outside, but in the fairy mansion, what he is crossing is a golden tribulation thunder? Moreover, the timeline can also be correct. I have never seen the Xianxia platform, so I can't make any comments. The ancestor nodded and said, I don't know much about the strange phenomena in the sea, but the two juniors last time, this time we brought them here too, but they're slow and won't arrive until later, so I'll ask them to talk to fellow Taoist Zhang in detail. After making an appointment to touch a stick of incense, Luo Su, Wuxu, and others finally arrived. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 902. Luo Su, Wu Su, you two, please tell me, Zhang Taoist friend, what the situation was like at that time. Seeing that their ancestor personally issued the order, the two of them did not dare to neglect it, not to mention that the Zhangdao Venerable in front of them also heard about it. The tribulation period. The strength is comparable to that of the ancestor. It is said that the black energy on those who are touched by him will last for a long time. It seems like it won't have any impact, but in fact this black energy will affect other people's cultivation. This makes ordinary monks never like to deal with the Zhangdao master. But beside him stood a Xianxia who was in the stage of becoming a god, and they couldn't help but take a second look. Just one glance. Senior Zhang, it's like this. We were looking for the cause of the death of a deacon in the door, so we came to the sea area. When we were about to reach the entrance to the East Mortal realm, we suddenly heard something strange happen from the sea area. Change. Countless deep-sea monsters cast their spells and set off huge waves. At that time, the sea and the sky were the same color, and they took advantage of the rising height of the sea water to swarm up, as if they were going to break through the sky. Those sea monsters are all races we have never seen before. I think they have been lurking under the deep sea, so I came to this conclusion. Zhangdao Venerable narrowed his eyes and said, you mean, these sea monsters want to go to heaven? What they want appears in the sky. Dirty fellow Taoist, the ancestor interrupted at the right time and said, the golden divine power you saw in the outer world came from this direction of the sea. The Zhangdao master pondered for a moment, carefully recalled his position at that time, and then nodded. Zuyun beside him couldn't help but look into the depths of the wild sea. If this wild sea area is the same as the sea area in the East Mortal realm, on the other side, wouldn't it be that golden power comes from the East Mortal realm? In this case, I wonder if fellow Taoist Zhang is willing to go with me to explore the entrance to the East Mortal realm. If we gain something, how about we share it equally? The ancestor took the initiative to propose, but was rejected by the Zhangdao Venerable. I still have something to do, so I won't go. The ancestor was a little surprised, but he didn't force it. He just cupped his hands casually, and then flew towards the sea with his followers in the void refining stage. After a long time, the Zhangdao Venerable said, okay, he's gone far away. Boy, it's time for you to show me your highness Halligan. This sudden opening made Zuyun take his mind back. Originally, in his plan, he borrowed the water spirit bead to escape into the sea, but after hearing what Luo Su and Wu Su said, there were actually them in the deep sea. The giant monster that everyone is afraid of. But now, there is no choice. Senior, Please keep an eye on it. Zhu Yun's mind moved, he used his wind spirit power, and flew above the sea in the blink of an eye. Seeing the swift movements, Zhangdao Venerable nodded secretly in his heart. This reaction was much better than the ordinary spirit transformation stage, and it was a good sign. He sees people differently and has his own unique method. After searching the spiritual world for many years, I still couldn't find a disciple who could enter his Dharma eyes. As for spiritual roots, he didn't care, because he had spiritual cleansing water that could wash away the monk's spiritual roots. But he had never heard of Haligan that Zhu Yun was talking about. That's why Zhu Yunke said that he would perform it at the beach, and he would agree to come down. Looking at Zhu Yun again, after seeing him flying to the sea, the calm sea suddenly set off a huge wall of water. He felt it carefully and couldn't help but frown slightly. Isn't this water spiritual power? No, no, this water spiritual power seems to be a little different. Is it really the Haligan that the boy said? Zhu Yun used the water controlling power of the water Lingzhu, and deliberately used the water power in the water Lingzhu to confuse the speculations of the Zhangdao master. It was precisely because of this suspicion that Zhu Yun had an opportunity to take advantage of it. It was absolutely impossible to attack the Zhangdao master with this huge water wall, so Zhu Yun used other methods to confuse the audience. Wow! 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 Countless identical walls of water rose into the sky. What Luo Su and Wuxu said earlier undoubtedly gave him inspiration, so Zhu Yun wanted to simulate the scene of a giant deep-sea monster emerging from the water. His soul power was deeper than before. Soon, he connected all the water walls that rushed out into one, as if he had raised this area of the sea by more than 10 feet out of thin air, and raised his entire body. People are also swallowed up in it. The Zhangdao master was indeed fooled. All his attention was attracted by the wall of water, and he didn't realize that Zhu Yun had used the water escape technique crazily to escape into the deep sea. When the water wall lost control of the Shui Lingzhu and dispersed, he suddenly came back to his senses. Zhu Yun, the boy, had disappeared. What a good boy, you actually used Haligan to run into the sea. The Zhangdao master smiled instead of getting angry, but can you run away? Zhu Yun didn't know that when he was touched by the Zhangdao master, his body was already contaminated with his Zhangdao spiritual power. This kind of spiritual power that has no semicolon in the entire spiritual world, no matter where he is, he can't escape the pursuit of the Zhangdao master. It's not that Zhu Yun couldn't guess this, it was indeed that he had no choice. Just imagine, the golden spirit beads taken out by the Zhangdao Venerable earlier were completely covered by the spiritual power of the Zhangdao. Even if Zhu Yun placed them in the storage ring, they would still be found by the Zhangdao Venerable until Zhu Yun put them there. In the immortal mansion, the induction of the Zhangdao master was cut off. However, Zhangdao master thought that he could accept Zhu Yun as his disciple, so he didn't ask any more questions. Humph, kid, when I catch you, it will be easy for you. Now, I will prepare the spiritual water first. As long as you are in the spirit world, you will not be able to escape my eyes. The Zhangdao master also simply left, which Zhu Yun did not expect. At this time, he frantically escaped into the deep sea, risking being discovered by the giant monster of the deep sea. But never thought about it. Far away in the sea, the five elements ancestor noticed something strange that had happened here before, and was thinking about whether to come back and take a look. Ancestor? Luo Su asked again. Tell me the truth, how high was the water level raised by the sea monster at that time? In comparison, Zhu Yunding was only a few dozen feet taller. According to what he saw, it was impossible for the deep sea giant monster to be that small. Luo Su thought for a moment and said, Ancestor, I didn't take a closer look at that time, but it is more than 100 feet long. Let's go. The ancestor turned around and left, continuing to fly towards the entrance of the East Mortal realm. As for Zhu Yun, with the support of Yuan Shen, he can use water escape technique faster. Moreover, there is no need to hide the power of chaos. He drove the 24 Lotus Hearts crazily. Under the rapid rotation, the Lotus Hearts continuously transformed the power of chaos into water spiritual power, which was used for Zhu Yu's water escape technique. After consuming the chaos power of 2 Lotus Hearts, Zhu Yun finally stopped. It was pitch black all around, and he felt as if there were many sea creatures stirring up the undercurrent. Instead of releasing his spiritual consciousness to investigate, for fear of attracting the giant demon, he used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique. But in the seabed, the effect of the void-breaking spiritual eye technique is extremely limited, but it is enough to allow him to see clearly the situation under his feet. Zhu Yun found a crack, then dodged and hid in the immortal mansion. Phew, it's finally safe. Sitting on the stone bed, Zhu Yun took a long breath, muttered to himself, and looked at the 5 elements of Chaos Sutra on the bookshelf. I don't know how many techniques the ancestor has mastered after he has reached the stage of transcending tribulation. But the strange thing is, why does Zhang Taoist say that his life is running out? Doesn't it mean that by practicing the sutra, he can ascend steadily? Moreover, they also have fragments of the glass mirror, and the space in them also has a difference in time flow. Zhu Yun muttered to himself before taking out the golden spirit bead. The spiritual world is too dangerous. If nothing else, I must at least practice the 5 elements incarnation technique. In this way, if I encounter such a powerful person and the opponent directly kills me, my strength will not be damaged at most, but this dirty how can we resolve Tao spiritual power? Zhu Yun once again put the golden lingzhu in his hand, and his mind gradually sank. But after a long time, he still had no clue, which made him a little irritable. My whole body is covered by the spiritual power of the Zhang Dao. There is absolutely no way. How about asking the ancestral tree? In the immortal mansion, Zhu Yun had no one to turn to, so he thought of the ancestral tree that had lived the longest. He did what he said, he got up and walked outside the cave, to the edge of the pasture, and ducked into the pasture. After walking for a while, he saw the ancestral tree. Just as he was about to step forward, a grey robe suddenly emerged from the ground and stopped in front of him. It's the holy mountain of wood spirit. Zhu Yun, stop. There is something strange about these totem poles. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 903. Totem Pole. Zhu Yun was shocked and quickly stopped and looked not far behind the holy mountain. Only then did he realize that a green sky curtain was completely covering the 11 totem poles. At first glance, it is the handiwork of Xiaoshu. Zhu Yun asked intently, Holy Mountain, what happened to this totem pole? Since you left, the totem pole has been absorbing the spiritual power of this world, and we don't know what happened. The old tree said that there was no other way but to trap them first. We originally wanted to ask you first, maybe what do you know? Zhu Yun shook his head and smiled bitterly, how can I know? To be honest, these totem poles were given to me by a group of demon kings for some unknown reason, saying they wanted to get rid of the destiny, but I don't know what the destiny is. Das Han sighed and said, I don't know what happened when thunder suddenly fell last time. Zhu Yun, why don't you go find the demon dragon king? Maybe he is in the spirit world and can know the destiny. Demon dragon emperor. He is also an existence equivalent to the tribulation stage. Where can I dare to go? At least you have to practice to a certain level. But having said that, the dragon suppressing stone is now in the possession of the demon dragon emperor, and the demon dragon emperor does not know that the dragon suppressing stone has transformed over the years and become the stone demon dragon. Perhaps, he can give it a try. Did the ancestral tree say anything? Zuyun didn't know what was going on here, so he asks Yang Muling Holy Mountain. The ancestral tree is okay. He can trap these totem poles alone and no longer allow them to absorb the spiritual power here and then change. However, he is fully focused on it and we can't communicate, so I don't practice. I'm here to prevent other creatures from coming over here. If it's just to disturb me, then forget it, I'm afraid it will ruin the old tree's good deeds. Zuyun understood. It was no wonder that he was stopped by Muling Holy Mountain just after he came over. However, the ancestral tree and the wood spirit sacred mountain seemed to be together, why not ask him? Thinking of this, Zuyun took out the golden spirit bead and said, Holy Mountain, do you recognize this thing? What is this? Muling Shengshan frowned and subconsciously took 2 steps back, as if he was deeply afraid of the dirty spiritual power above. This is the golden spirit pearl. When Zuyun saw this, he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed, but he still wanted to give it a try and told Muling Holy Mountain. Isn't the golden spirit pearl golden? Why did it turn black? And this black power makes me feel fear. I don't know how to explain this. I can only say that a great master cultivates this black power. According to what he said, it is some kind of dirty spiritual power. Moreover, he has passed the tribulation stage. Transcending the tribulation period. Muling Shengshan couldn't help but exclaimed, and it took him a while to calm down and said, Then Zuyun, you took the golden spirit beads to ask the old tree how to unlock this dirty spiritual power. Zuyun nodded. Muling Shengshan pondered for a moment and said, Every knot must be solved. This is the law that all things must follow. It is only the attributes of the so-called Zhangdao spiritual power that can be solved. Zuyun said, I know it too, but this dirty spiritual power seems to have no attributes. As long as it is spiritual power, it must have attributes. The great road is divided into yin and yang, and the human heart is divided into good and evil. Everything in the world has 2 opposite sides. It's just that our realm is low and our vision is shallow, so we don't realize it. Muling Shenshan's words suddenly gave Zuyun a light in his mind. When the Zhangdao master asked Tang Liwen to give him a bath, he said something. What is being washed is not the dirt on the body, but the heart that is not clean enough. That's right. Suddenly, Zuyun remembered. The spiritual power of the Zhangdao gave him a feeling at that time, which was very similar to the chaotic power cultivated by the nightmare demon. That is to say, man's original sin. The 7 deadly sins. Then, this dirty spiritual power is evil. On the contrary, that is goodness. Therefore, it can be washed away with kind thoughts. However, thinking about it in reverse, Zuyun couldn't help but have doubts. He believed that after cultivating immortality, he had good thoughts in his heart, so Aniao, who was the only one with good intentions, got along so well with him and worked together to fight against evil thoughts. But the Zhangdao master still said that his heart was unclean. To be precise, it's not clean enough. Zuyun couldn't help but fell into deep thought. He felt that he had never been sorry to anyone. Sun Qiniang, who once put a knife on Zhu Rong's neck, after realizing the truth, Zuyun let him live and eventually became close friends. Zhu Feng, who once regarded him as his lifelong enemy and wanted to kill him countless times, after losing all his cultivation, Zuyun personally sent him back to barren Stone Mountain. And in the wild offshore sea at that time, Zhao Kamang, the lord of Fangxi, who summoned countless sea monsters and almost surrounded him and Sun Qiniang to death, was subdued by him as a pet after becoming a monster, and recently agreed to let him practice in the wild sea. There are countless such examples, and he even united with his kind thoughts to save the common people in the mortal world, eradicating the nightmare clan and evil thoughts in one fell swoop, once and for all. But why did the Zhangdao Venerable say that his heart was unclean? Is it because I kill people sometimes? But those people are threatening my existence. Countless dangers made Zuyun's journey to immortality extremely bumpy. Zuyun's Taoist heart is very strong, but at this time, because of the words of Zhangdao Venerable, he could not help but have self-doubt. Zuyun, what's wrong with you? Suddenly, the voice of Muling Holy Mountain rang out, pulling him out of his thoughts. I'm thinking about something. Zuyun raised his head, looked at Muling Holy Mountain with concerned eyes and explained softly, but the green sky curtain reminded him of a person. Mu Qingxin. This person was brought by Tang Zhuyang from the Peepa realm to the Ya realm, and then he was raised as an adult. In the end, his body was destroyed and only his soul was left hiding in the pseudo-wood spirit bead. Even though he knew that Mu Qingxin could not threaten him, Zuyun still threw the whole bead into the volcano in Qinan. When Mu Ling Shengshan saw Zuyun acting like this again, he stopped disturbing him and allowed Zuyun to stand silently. Zuyun's thoughts gradually became more profound. At that time, Mu Qingxin could no longer hurt me. With my strength at that time, I couldn't hurt her either. So, I threw her into the volcano. I could obviously leave her in the pasture. She was just filled with love and hatred for me at that time. It was a complete misunderstanding. And I still feel like it's natural to kill her. For a moment, Zuyun suddenly became a little excited. Also, I let Sun Qiniang go because I thought she would no longer threaten me. The same is true for Zhu Feng. Not only does he have no spiritual power and his cultivation is completely destroyed, he can also return to Barren Stone Mountain and carry on the Zhu family's lineage on my behalf. I conquered Zhao Kamang because I didn't have a mount. Now Zhao Kamang can't help me at all, so I'm willing to let him go. Lao Jin, Lao Ma, I am not selfish, but I still flaunt my adherence to Taoism. Why should I save the common people in the world? It's because whether the nightmare demon becomes powerful or evil thoughts take possession of the demon refining tower, my future in the mortal world will become uncertain. At that time, Wanjian Mountain was destroyed, and the people in the demon refining tower were all the monsters escaped from the tower, but I turned a blind eye. Zuyun, Zuyun, you are a selfish guy. In just such a moment, Zuyun suddenly saw through his true nature that he had never discovered. Puff. Just like that, he spit out a mouthful of blood, but at the same time, his mind became more open-minded. From now on, he will be a different Zuyun. If people want to be kind, then they have a kind heart. Those who deserve to be killed should still be killed. Killing evil people is a good deed. Seeing through himself made Zuyun's Taoist heart even firmer. The most difficult thing for people is to know themselves. Zuyun, what's wrong with you? Seeing Zuyun spit out blood without any warning, Mu Ling Shengshan was shocked and asked quickly. Holy Mountain, I'm fine. I just figured out one thing. Thank you very much. Although it was the unintentional words of Mu Ling Holy Mountain, it was the key to guiding Zuyun to figure out the matter. You have figured it out, what can you thank me for? Seeing that Zuyun looked good, Mu Ling Shengshan couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, but after listening to Zuyun's words, he couldn't help but feel confused. Zuyun lowered his head and chuckled, playing with the golden spirit bead that was dusted by the spiritual power of the evil spirit in his hand, and said, Thank you. I still bother you and the ancestral tree to look at the totem pole. When I have time, I will go to the Dragon Demon Emperor. Go and get as many other totem poles as you can. Don't worry here. If the old tree can't do it, at least I still have it. You know, we all absorb the original power of this world. As long as I wish you well, the original power of this world will not disappear. Good work. Zuyun put away the golden spirit bead and then said goodbye. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 904. Ranch by the Lake. Old Zhao, I am in the deep sea now. I will let you out later. However, I have something to tell you first. Zuyun stood in front of Zhao Kamang, who had transformed into a human, and said, "Master, please speak." Zhao Kamang was very respectful. "Well, the wild sea area here may be connected to the mortal world, but I don't know exactly how. After all, my time in the spiritual world is still short. But one thing is certain, here there are giant monsters in the deep sea, which even people in the void refining stage are afraid of, so try not to go deep, remember." "Thank you, Master, for reminding me," Kamang knows. "Okay then, get ready and I'll let you out first." Zuyun nodded, and then passed through the immortal mansion and appeared in the deep sea again. Feeling the darkness and silence, Zuyun's mind moved and he released Zhao Kamang. Zhao Kamang had transformed into the form of a dragon-toothed beast, clinging to the rocks at the bottom of the sea, and bowing deeply to Zuyun. "Master, when I succeed in my cultivation, I will come to the land to find you." After saying that, Zhao Kamang jumped up and disappeared into the darkness, leaving Zuyun alone in a daze. He just said, "We'll come back." This is something Zuyun never thought of. Zhao Kamang told Sangu and the others, but Zuyun didn't know. When he recalled why he conquered Zhao Kamang, Zuyun smiled bitterly. "Now, go back and find a way to erase the dirty spiritual power from the golden spirit bead." After understanding his thoughts, Zuyun had a different feeling when he looked at the golden lingzu again. It was originally pure black, but now it looks like it is no longer so close. "Perhaps, we can wrap them up with the power of chaos and then dissolve them all." Zuyun flashed and entered the day-glazed mirror again. After leaving the cave, he sat cross-legged on the edge of the void, placed the golden spirit bead in his palm, then gathered the chaotic power in Lian's heart and began to refine the Zhangdao spiritual power above. If the golden spirit pearl is not refined into the body, it will never come out. The land of Juyuo, Demon Moon Sect. Sect Master, Sword Valley may have also learned about the Ascension platform, but I don't know why he made such a big fuss and asked us to attend their banquet. The 3 demon cultivators have returned to the sect and reported the situation to the sect leader. "Well," an ethereal voice sounded calmly from the high platform at the head of the palace, "the wind shock realm is enough, but the combat power is not strong. It may be that he refined the true dragon wind sword, which made his confidence soar. You guessed it right, he just wants to seize the immortal platform." "But Sect Master, is it not so easy to grab the immortal platform?" "Originally, it is controlled by a few transcendent forces. Even if Feng Zhen has a peerless sword, it will be difficult for him to break into the restricted area." The restriction she mentioned was not a restriction imposed by the immortal platform, but a joint effort by several transcendental forces. Because of the special nature of the ascending immortal platform, whenever they are born, all monks within a certain range, as long as they are under the tribulation period, will be sucked into the ascendant immortal platform and undergo a test. Anyone who passes the test will be directly promoted to the immortal world, without the need to practice hard again, and trigger the heavenly tribulation during the tribulation period. There is a shortcut, which naturally attracts countless monks to follow it. However, due to the deliberate actions of the transcendent forces, it is extremely difficult for the other monks to enter the immortal ascension platform, let alone ascend during the day. Only those with great luck who appear nearby when Xianxia is born will enter Xianxia. But they were unable to accurately know the birth time of Xianxian platform, so they were naturally not prepared and could not compete with the monks in the transcendental forces. It is said that after the monks who passed through the immortal platform became immortals, they would also use special channels to send some things from the immortal world to their own forces. The levels of the planes are different. Things from the fairy world are put into the lower realm. Of course, they are treasure-level existences. Only in this way will their transcendent power last forever. The immortal platform is born once every 1,000 years, and its location is in the outer sky. But the position is not fixed every time. Tianweishan is vast, almost as large as 1/3 of the entire spiritual world, and the time of its appearance is not known by anyone. Naturally, it is rare to encounter monks from the immortal platform. But the more this happens, the more monks want to take such a shortcut. Even the demonic monks from the 9 Netherlands. The Demon Moon sect is one of these sects. Huan'er, you are wrong. Feng Zhen said he had the true dragon wind sword. How are you sure what he said is true? Did you see it with your own eyes? Huan'er was the name of this female demon cultivator. Seeing the sect leader shaking his head and saying this, she suddenly realized, yes, in the entire spiritual world, except for those peerless and powerful treasures, who would make their trump cards public. Perhaps Feng Zhen wanted to use a series of disguises to spread false news throughout the spiritual world and confuse the transcendent forces. At that time, there were hundreds of factions who went to celebrate the occasion. Although most of them are second or third rate, it is enough to spread the news throughout Tianwei. In my opinion, the birth of Xianxia platform this time will be exciting. Perhaps, this is also an opportunity for our Demon Moon sect. Having said this, the sect leader suddenly stood up and revealed his true appearance. If Zuyun were here, he would definitely be shocked. Because the sect leader actually looks exactly like Zhang Feng, the beloved beast pavilion who died in the Demon Moon forest in the mortal world. Sect Master, what do you mean? Feng Zhen's ultimate goal is to use all the forces in Tianwei to attack the immortal platform. Huan'er's pretty face was full of shock. That's right, the sect leader raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, just think about it, Feng Zhen can break through the restrictions of the transcendent forces by himself. But, do you think the powerful people of the transcendent forces will not take action? How can you guarantee that those who can't pass the ascension platform will not stop Feng Zhen, who is in the Mahayana period? Sect leader, I understand. Feng Zhen will definitely use the name of his sword to attract some cultivators again, and then pretend to approach the ascension platform inadvertently. At that time, the transcendent forces will lose sight of one thing while Feng Zhen only needs to enter the range of the ascension platform to participate. Among them, he even made more extreme preparations and was very confident that he could pass the test of the ascension platform. Yes, that's right, it's the biggest possibility. Feng Zhen is very cunning, and our Demon Moon sect has dealt with him many times. How could we take advantage of him? The sect master nodded, and then said, this time on the ascension platform, you three will follow me. If Feng Zhen attracts other people's attention, it will also prevent those transcendent forces from noticing us. Sect master, you want to take us with you? The three were extremely surprised because they were in the god transformation stage. You also understand the rules of the ascension platform, and anyone within the realm can enter it. Therefore, the people we want to take are naturally the most loyal to the sect. Only loyal people will ascend to the fairyland, and they will find ways to send resources from the fairyland to make our Demon Moon sect stronger. The three people immediately understood, and they knelt down in joy. Thank you, sect master. Okay, it's good that you know. When the time is right, we will go to the Sword Valley under the pretext of visiting Feng Zhen. Then, we will act according to the situation. The sect master waved his hand, and the three people were blown out of the sect master's hall without wind. As the door of the hall was closed, a gloomy smile appeared on the face of the Demon Moon sect master. He has been waiting for this day for a long time. The reason why he chose these three people to go together is that they are only in the spiritualization stage, and their Yuan Shen has just condensed, which gives him a loophole to exploit. My chance of passing the test with 4 people is 4 times greater than that of others, ha ha ha. It's a pity that the clone in the East Fan realm has not been fully developed, otherwise. However, fortunately, I have been planning for many years, and this time, I will definitely take the lead in the Ascension platform. Such similar scenes also occurred in many places in the 9 Netherworld. No one knows why the news of the exact time and location of the Ascension platform was born this time was so easy to get. All the major demon sects have made arrangements. It is conceivable that the heaven beyond heaven will be so exciting. Everyone thought that they had received secret information, but they didn't know that undercurrents had already surged. The heaven beyond heaven may bring the biggest grand occasion since the appearance of the Ascension platform. But in the entire spiritual world, only the Five Elements sect was indifferent. It's not that they don't want to pass the Ascension platform, but when they reach the refining void stage, a sentence will appear in the Five Elements Chaos Sutra: anyone who practices this technique must not pass the Ascension platform. Otherwise, it will attract the immortal thunder, and the five thunders will hit the top of the head until death. However, Zuyun has not reached this realm yet, so he has never seen this sentence. At this time, he was refining the dirty spiritual power at the edge of the void, and finally got a little harvest. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 905. Regarding the spiritual power of the Zhangdao, Zuyun actually has his own conjecture. It stems from what the master of the Zhangdao said to him, that is, your heart is not clean enough. And, the 7 deadly sins were also mentioned. At that time, Zuyun just suspected whether Zhangdao Zun and the nightmare demon were related, and didn't think too much about it. The important thing is that he himself doesn't want to practice any dirty way at all, so he won't delve into why he practices this way. He has to cleanse his heart first. But after Zuyun was accidentally enlightened by Muling Holy Mountain, his character really changed. Zuyun is kind-hearted by nature, but it is all because of the intrigues on the path to immortality that he has been forced to change his character to some extent. Although he has always maintained his original intention, everything happened subconsciously. In order to survive, he did nothing wrong. Even with this mentality, he can continue to practice normally and become an immortal in the future. It's just that if you don't achieve perfection, you may end up with inner demons. Inner demons are a type of evil. Zuyun almost had a demon in his heart once. Fortunately, Huang Longshu noticed something strange at the time and quickly reminded Zuyun, so it didn't happen. But now, his Xingxing is completely clear. Naturally, this merciful Xingxing uses the power of chaos to pry the visceral spiritual power on the golden spirit bead. Very good. Zuyun was overjoyed and observed the lotus pods. It took the chaotic power of 2 lotus hearts to pry one of them off. He wanted to erase all the spiritual power of the dirty roads. There was a long way to go. He thought that erasing the spiritual power of the Zhangdao would not only allow him to refine the golden spirit beads, but also make it possible for the Zhangdao Venerable to no longer be able to find him. And this is just what he thought. But fortunately, this gave Zuyun great confidence. In the immortal mansion, he had no burden and devoted himself wholeheartedly to it. None of the immortals dared to disturb him, especially Xiaohe. It takes no time to cultivate immortality, and the same goes for refining treasures. Zuyun used the power of empty chaos to absorb it until 20 or 40 lotus hearts lit up, and then continued to remove the spiritual power of the internal organs. It often recurs, I don't know how long it takes. Until, the golden lingzhu suddenly emitted golden light. Done. Zuyun was overjoyed and stood up quickly. Looking at the golden spirit bead in his hand, he felt an indescribable joy. However, he did not rush to refine it, but pinched his fingers. So many years have passed. Fortunately, the outside world has only been 3 months. When Zuyun reached the nascent soul stage, the difference in time flow speed had reached 1 to 7. 1 day outside was 7 days inside. I thought that when the jade slips disappeared in the transformation stage, the time flow rate difference might no longer be affected, but I didn't expect that the time flow rate difference would actually go further. 1 to 8. It seems that this has nothing to do with the jade slips, but the mirror itself. The haze left in Zuyun's heart because the jade slip became a dead jade immediately dissipated. He looked inside the lotus pod again. According to the 5 elements of Chaos Sutra, the improvement of realm requires constant refining of chi. The more times, the better the effect will be. Therefore, this technique, the further it goes, the more time it takes. Just like when he was refining the spiritual power of the internal organs, he did not know how many times he had experienced it, and there were some changes in the lotus pods. The 24 lotus hearts originally glowed with a little golden light when the chaos power was used, but looking at it now, it was already clearly visible. It is enough to show that Zuyun's realm has also been improved in the process of refining the spiritual power of the Zhangdao, but it has not yet reached the level of breakthrough. You kill two birds with one stone. The smile on Zuyun's face became even wider, and at the same time he became more certain in his heart that there must be a fragment of the glazed mirror in the 5 elements sect, otherwise it would be impossible for their sect to be so powerful. You know, the 5 elements of Chaos Sutra mentioned more than once that cultivation should be the main focus. The immortal is so cautious. Could it be that he is worried that the monks with 5 spiritual roots will go out to fight and be killed? But the monks in the lower world will die when they die. What does it have to do with him? If there is no benefit, I can't afford it. I don't believe that the immortals in the immortal world can be so selfless. Xianxia also said that he hopes I will not die in the immortal world. Could it be, that the day of my ascension after practicing the 5 elements of Chaos Sutra is the day of death? Zuyun just had an idea and couldn't help but want to go to a deeper place. Originally, he had doubts about the 5 elements of Chaos Sutra. Although Xianxia didn't say it explicitly, he let Zuyun know extremely important information. His gloating tone at that time. It seems that the immortal world is not so peaceful. If ascension is the end of death, then what is the purpose of the immortals? Could it be that the people in the immortal world are also people who hate the 5 spiritual roots and want to eradicate them? Zuyun shook his head, thinking this idea was ridiculous. Then the only possibility is that immortal. He doesn't know what the fairy world is like, but he can guess people's hearts. I just don't know if the 5 spiritual roots, which are called waste spiritual roots by the world, are also related to immortals. Forget it, it's still early for the immortal world, and there is also the so-called immortal ascension platform. I don't want to be involved in it. Anyway, I can definitely ascend to the immortal world, but at least, I can't just rush in like I came to the spiritual world in the mortal world. As a result, his eyes darkened and he almost died. At least, he must master all the information he can about the fairy world in the spiritual world. Zuyun stretched out and felt that his whole body was full of strength, then he cautiously left the fairy mansion. It is still a deep sea bed. However, he did not appear at his original location. Thinking about it, it was the undercurrent in the sea that brought the mirror out. After all, it had been 3 months, and anything could happen. Zuyun found another place and got into the fairy mansion again. Next, he will refine the golden spirit pearl into his body. 5 elements sect, Back Mountain. After 3 months of searching, I found nothing, not even a single deep sea monster. The 5 elements ancestor murmured. Ancestor, with our cultivation techniques, there is no need to look for those illusory things, right? Luo Su whispered from below. That's what I say to you, but not to me. My realm and strength have reached the peak, and I can actually move the sky long ago and soar in one fell swoop. But do you know why I don't do this? The ancestor of the 5 elements was upset and said to Luo Su angrily. Luo Su didn't know where he had offended his ancestor. He lowered his head and didn't dare to answer. Humph, short-sighted. The ancestor snorted softly, and then said, but my lifespan is short. If I don't cause the heavenly tribulation, I'm afraid I will have to sit in the lower realm. I still have to cause the heavenly tribulation. Next, I will go into seclusion. Don't disturb me in any way. Me. Even if, the 5 elements sect is destroyed, it won't work. Hearing this, Luosu and Wuxi trembled. They didn't know why their ancestor would say such heavy words. But before that, I have some conjectures that I want to tell you. When the time comes, you can tell some of my disciples. Most of the ancestor's disciples are in the Mahayana stage. Yes, ancestor. Luosu and the other two quickly knelt down on the ground, extremely respectful. A conjecture about the tribulation period may not be any different from reality. Well, the ancestor paused, and then said, the other sects can all receive some resources from the immortal world, either as messages or as tricks of immortality. But why is our five elements sect so powerful? But no senior from the sect who ascended to immortality has ever contacted us. Are those sect rumors true? Both Luosu and Luosu were shocked. The immortals who passed through the immortal platform would all contact the original sects in the lower world, but the Five Elements sect never did this. This made all the people in the Five Elements sect think that this was a bluff by the big forces, scaring them that the Five Elements sect would not dare to take action. But listening to what the ancestor said, it is obvious that this is indeed the case. The fairy world actually contacts the lower world. And their Five Elements sect has never had the most people ascended in the past years. It's not a rumor, it's the truth. The ancestor snorted coldly and said, otherwise, why do you think our Five Elements sect would still keep them? No one can answer this rhetorical question. So, why don't we, the Five Elements sect, contact the lower realms? Are they all heartless and unjust people? No, not really. The ancestor sighed and said, the person who ascended in the Five Elements sect is my senior brother, and the one who was earlier is also my senior brother. We have an irreversible relationship, and our love has remained the same for nearly 10,000 years. We made an appointment before they ascended. You must contact me if you have the chance, but when my life is approaching, there is still no news, so I guess. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 906. They are all dead. Hearing this, Luosu and Wuxi were all shocked. Why do they practice immortality? Isn't it just for eternal life? Why did he go to the fairy world and die instead? Luosu's voice trembled. How is this possible? Nothing is impossible, the Five Elements ancestor sighed. If they are not dead, why don't they contact me? If they are not dead, why don't our Five Elements sect ancestors bring things down through various channels, even if they are not dead? It's a word. The more the ancestor spoke, the more excited he became. Why have I suppressed it for so long without triggering a catastrophe even though my realm is high enough? Isn't it just to seek more life-saving means in the lower realm? You really think that I am strengthening my strength? The foundation of the Five Elements of Chaos Sutra that we practice is as solid as any other technique in the entire spiritual world. No, to be precise, it should be in the entire lower realm. Seeing the ancestor who was a little out of control, Luosu and the two couldn't calm down for a long time. Actually, is this the case? Okay, what needs to be said is said. You should tell this to all the fellow disciples in the back mountain, and ask them to practice without forgetting to increase their own trump cards. Remember, it must be in addition to the Five Elements of Chaos Sutra exercises. Trump card. Yes, we remember. Luosu Wuxi lowered his head. They couldn't believe what their ancestor said. No matter what the Five Elements sect is like, at least there have been more demonic cultivators passing through the Five Elements sect recently. They all came from the land of Jiyu. If they want to go to Tianwei, they must pass through the realm of Five Elements sect. At the same time, Tianwei gradually became lively. But the strange thing is that Jianggu's actions are a bit unclear. Feng Zhen held a banquet with great fanfare, invited guests and friends, and showed off that he had made a peerless sword. But he suddenly lowered his profile, which made some forces in Tianweishan laugh. All nascent soul disciples are searching for a person named Feng Anhe in Tianweishan. It is enough to show that Feng Anhe stole his sword. A joke, the biggest joke in the history of Tianweishan. This is actually a small episode before the ascension to immortal platform. No one cares about the wind and vibration. They cultivate immortality for themselves. What's more, they guessed some of Feng Zhen's purpose, but they were happy to see it. Because of this, they have one less potential competitor. The immortal platform is a test, but how it will be tested, no one knows except for the large forces that control it. Now that the news has leaked, everyone wants to be the luckiest one this time. Except Zhu Yun. At this time, he has reached the most critical moment of refining the golden spirit bead. Gold says Kongli, which belongs to the lungs. In order to successfully refine the golden spirit pearl into his lungs, he was suffering tremendous pain, which he had never experienced before. The lungs govern breathing, so Zhu Yun had to stop breathing and proceed through the pores of the body. At the same time, gold is Kongli, and the Li Qi above is constantly piercing the lungs. In the past, the effects brought by the corresponding spirit beads usually lasted only a few breaths at most. Like water spirit beads, wood spirit beads are not abnormal at all. But something happened to Jin Lingzhu. All this is precisely because the golden Lingzhu is the last Lingzhu he needs to refine. Not only does he want to refine the golden spirit pearl into his lungs, he also wants to instantly form a balance when the refining is completed. Otherwise, if the 5 elements are disordered, his body will explode immediately. Because of this, Zhu Yunke endured endless pain. Hurry, hurry. Zhu Yun used his soul to forcibly cut off the spiritual power in the 2 attribute spirit beads of Kejin and Jinki. However, the consequence of this was that the spiritual power was out of control. These spiritual powers are constantly raging in the body, but fortunately, his 24 lotus hearts seem to have generated spirituality. As long as there is spiritual power wandering near the lotus pods, it will be quickly sucked into it. When it appears again, it will became the force of chaos. This is also the first time Zhu Yun has refined the spiritual power in the spirit beads. Because of this, Zhu Yun was given great confidence that he could persevere under such pain. But it is conceivable that if a person from the 5 elements sect is refining the 5th spirit bead without a lotus pod in the body, the pain will be even worse. Zhu Yun's head was already covered with large beads of sweat. He even let out meaningless low roars from time to time, thus awakening those elixirs whose hearts had changed. Old tree, master, this is. The colorful leaves of rainbow leaf were actually glowing. It was obvious that the changes in the immortal mansion had brought her a lot of benefits. Looking at the Huanglong tree again, not only did the dead bark become green and crisp, but the short branches also produced a few green fruits. This is Huanglong fruit. If it matures, it will cause countless de Luo Jinxian, Luo Tian Xianxian, etc. in the immortal world to compete for the fairy fruit. Not just them, all the elixirs have undergone radical changes. Master, he has reached the critical moment of breakthrough. I have a hunch that if this breakthrough is successful, his achievements in the future, maybe he will catch up with the immortal emperor. Huang Longshu's tone was very certain. Then what if I can't get through? Jing Yuanko also interjected with great concern. If you can't make it, I'm afraid I won't be able to escape death. Huang Longshu shook his head, and the green fruits on the tree shook a few times, and the rest of the elixir suddenly lost its voice. But then, Huang Longshu said again, however, with the master's temperament, it is not difficult to break through, it just takes time. Then this time. All the immortal medicines said almost in unison. Maybe 1 hour, maybe 10,000 years. At this moment, the painful expression on Zhu Yun's face suddenly disappeared, and turned into a smile. All the immortal medicines were overjoyed. They didn't expect that Zuyun had successfully broken through just after Huang Longshu finished speaking. As they saw, Zuyun finally completely integrated the golden spirit pearl into his lungs. At the same time, he also released the restraint on the wood spirit pearl and the fire spirit pearl, allowing the 5 elements to quickly reach a balance. 5 spirit pearls, all merged. The endless pain disappeared, and instead, a very comfortable power spread throughout the body. Zuyun knew that this was the power of chaos. Although this power of chaos was not as pure as the one refined by his 24 lotus hearts, the meaning of it was extraordinary. The spiritual power in the 5 spirit beads can be circulated in the body, so his chaotic power can also be transformed into single attribute spiritual power and stored in the spirit beads. Originally, the spirit beads absorbed spiritual power from the outside world. No matter how pure it was, it could not compare to the chaotic power refined by Zuyun. But now, Zuyun can directly charge the spirit beads, which will allow him to exert greater power when he uses the spiritual power of various systems in the future. How can I not be happy about this? To put it more simply, Zuyun is equivalent to having 5 more Dent Eons. Maybe one spirit bead cannot match the total amount of Zuyun's 24 lotus hearts, but that is also a considerable space. This will make Zuyun, who is in the God transformation stage, close to the spiritual power of the void refining stage. Great. Feeling the changes in his body, Zuyun couldn't help but speak. When he opened his eyes, he found that a group of immortal medicines actually stood in front of him, and at the same time, they also underwent great changes. Zuyun swept them one by one, and all the immortal medicines changed. Even the common spiritual medicine he picked from the pasture and planted in the medicine garden has at least increased to 1,000 years old. Thanks to the master, we can transform. Huang Longshu laughed, and suddenly turned around, turning into a middle-aged man. But his appearance was particularly funny, with a green crown on his head, and 9 fruits hanging on the brim of the hat. Huh? Old tree, you have fruit? Zuyun was stunned and asked hurriedly. Haha, I said we thank the master, so it's natural to bear fruit. Hearing Huang Longshu's affirmative answer, Zuyun also smiled, and then looked to the side. There were 2 more women with outstanding temperament. One was wearing colorful clothes, like a rainbow appearing in the sky after rain. This was naturally Hong Ye. The other woman, wearing a green long skirt, was a bit like Mulu, who was transformed by the wood spirit pearl, but gave him a completely different feeling. Essence grass. And me. The blood ginseng squeezed in at some point, and after yelling, it turned around. It was just that maybe because he was too fat, he turned and fell when he transformed. A little fat man in red fell on his butt in front of Zuyun. Ouch, the little fat man rubbed his butt and stood up, frowning and said, "You are all fine, why did I fall?" The tender face looked like a child in his early teens. Zuyun thought, maybe the age of this blood ginseng is not enough. Since the immortal medicine can transform, it can naturally speak. Huang Longshu smiled and said, "Master, blood ginseng is a little different from us. It is both an immortal medicine and a spiritual medicine, so please bear with me." Ah! Zuyun was puzzled, and then he heard Huang Longshu say a shocking news. "I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 907. The blood ginseng was once picked up by the immortal emperor from the lower world. He found that this type of elixir had never been found in the immortal world, so he planted it in the soil in this medicine garden to keep us company. I see. After hearing this explanation, Zuyun suddenly realized. No wonder, after knowing that these were fairy medicines, he once thought about a question. I used the blood ginseng to refine the longevity pill and gave it to others. In the end, everything was fine. However, what concerned him the most was The immortal emperor has descended to the mortal world. Is it so easy for an immortal to go to the mortal world? I must have been to the mortal world. Faced with Zhu Yun's shock, Huang Longshu said with a smile, although the fairy world is large and governs countless lower realms, there are some things that are not found in the fairy world. However, it's difficult to go to the lower world, just like going from the spiritual world to the mortal world, there will be certain restrictions. The way of heaven. Yes, it is the way of heaven. Every lower realm has a corresponding way of heaven. The way of heaven is also strong and weak, but I don't know the specifics. Zhu Yun nodded and understood what Huang Longshu meant. That's right. If immortals could go to the lower world at will, wouldn't the entire world of immortality be in chaos? Moreover, this also made him more certain that the 5 elements of Chaos Sutra was a conspiracy. Perhaps, the 5 spiritual roots have some effect on the immortal, but the 5 spiritual roots are called waste spiritual roots by the world. Any cultivation method will achieve twice the result with half the effort, and it is difficult for immortals to go down to the world. So those who want the 5 spiritual roots, naturally it is difficult. If so, the 5 elements of Chaos Sutra can really solve this problem. Firstly, it allows people with 5 elements spiritual roots to ascend to immortality, and secondly, it saves him a lot of time. Save time, worry and effort. Zhu Yun shook his head and got this idea out of his mind. Things should be prioritized, and we will talk about such long-term matters later. Now, it's time to practice the 5 elements clone technique. It's time for me to practice, you can do whatever you want. Zhu Yun said goodbye to all the immortal medicines and then entered the cave. They all know that this cave is the immortal emperor's retreat cave, and they will not go in and disturb it. Okay, let's go practice too. Even if the master works so hard, we can't hold him back. Huang Longshu walked back to the medicine garden, transformed back into his true body, and took root in the soil. The other elixirs also followed suit, but Blood Ginseng had a sad expression on his face. I finally turned into a human, and you ask me to change back again. You can remain unchanged, but if the master wants to fight with others in the future, it will be difficult for him to fight with 2 fists. I'm afraid you will be stewed when you go out. Hong Ye's voice with a sweet smile made the little fat man change his face. He quickly ran back to the medicine garden on his short legs, turned into a blood ginseng next to the yellow dragon tree, and then got into his own hole. At this time, in the cave, Zhu Yun calmed down, controlled his soul, and contacted the 5 spirit beads. As long as it is a spell, it requires power to drive it. The higher the level of power, the better the effect of the spell. What Zhu Yun wants is to first extract all the spiritual power from the spirit bead, directly refine the 24 lotus hearts into the purest chaos power, and then turn these chaotic powers into corresponding attributes and re-inject them go into the spirit bead. In this way, in the future, when the chaos power of Zhu Yun's 24 lotus hearts is used up, he can directly merge the spiritual power of the 5 spirit beads into chaos power, which is the same as that in the lotus hearts. Under Zhu Yun's control, the spiritual power in the 5 spiritual beads spurted out, passed through the lotus pod step by step, and then was refined by the lotus heart. In comparison, the golden spiritual power in the golden spirit bead was the least, and it was drained out immediately. Zhu Yun separated a trace of his soul and controlled some of the transformed golden spiritual power to flow towards the golden spiritual power. Then there is the earth spirit bead. The earth spirit pearl was obtained from the ancestral land of the dragon clan. Zhu Yun did not use the spiritual power in it very much after obtaining it, so he did not have much spiritual power. Then there are the wood spirit beads and water spirit beads. Nothing was unexpected. Zhu Yun's soul was much more powerful than his soul. If it was divided into 5 parts and only connected with the spirit bead, he could still do it with ease. However, when the fire spirit pearl was used at the end, something unexpected happened. He forgot about Fen Tianyan among them. Master, Spare your life, spare your life. In the Zi mansion, Zuyun's soul suddenly heard Fen Tianyang's begging for mercy, which shocked Zuyun. What's wrong with you? Zuyun quickly stopped practicing. The strength of his soul meant that it was not a problem for him to cope with such a simple transformation of spiritual power, and his body would not be affected at all. Master, you want to kill me, I beg for mercy. Fen Tianyang cried. The longer he followed Zuyun, the closer his spiritual wisdom became to that of an adult. How could I want to kill you? Zuyun was speechless for a while and said, I just forgot about you. Why, if I absorb the fire spirit power from this fire spirit bead, will it affect you? No, no, Fen Tianyang said quickly, Master, you didn't just suck away the fire spiritual power, you almost sucked me out too. I thought you found a stronger sky fire, and then let me be eaten by him. Zuyun suddenly became happy and said with a smile, do you think the streets are full of sky fires? I have only seen 2 in my life. Master, the immortal emperor has been looking for me, but he has been looking for me for 30,000 years. Zuyun's eyes widened immediately. There are sky fires that can be seen in the mortal world. There should be more in the fairy world, right? Why does the immortal emperor still need 30,000 years? Master, you don't know something. There are actually many kinds of heavenly fire. For example, I was born with spiritual intelligence, and the sky fire that naturally turned into it over a long period of time is not comparable to the heavenly fire spawned in the fairy world. Fen Tianyang's spiritual intelligence increased, and his memory also recovered a little. He remembered some of his past with the immortal emperor, which gave Zuyun an unexpected gain. Aren't you the heavenly fire of the immortal realm? Zuyun asked strangely. No, I was originally a spiritual fire in the mortal world, and was found by the immortal emperor. I remember that the immortal emperor said that the mortal world seemed to be named Qingping Star. Qingping Star? Star. Star of stars. Zuyun was stunned immediately. Yes, Master, the world we originally lived in is divided into the spiritual world and the mortal world. Above the 2 worlds is the fairy world. The fairy world is boundless, and the world appears in the form of a planet in the void. Hearing this, Zuyun couldn't help but take a breath. I thought that the fairy world was the same world as the lower world. But who would have thought that the fairy world is actually a void? Then when we look up at the sky at night, the stars we see are a world. Zuyun couldn't help but ask. No, it's not those stars. Fen Tianyang hurriedly said, those stars can shine. They are actually burning fireballs. Ordinary immortals cannot enter them. How can ordinary monks talk about them? However, outside these stars, there are some other stars. The immortal emperor said it's a world star. The place we are in now is also a world star in the eyes of immortals. By the way, Master, the sun we see is a shining star. So, it'll be hot if you're in the sun. Is that right? Zuyun murmured and asked Xianxia Tianyang again. Yes, that's it. So, above this starry sky is the fairyland. At this time, Zuyun wished he could leave the immortal mansion immediately and rush to the sky to see how high he could fly and whether he could touch the immortal realm. There should be barriers in the immortal realm and the world star, right? To be precise, the world star should be in the immortal realm. But I can't remember the specific details. I only remember that I slowly grew up from the newly born spirit fire on the Qingping star. When I evolved into the sky fire in an instant, the immortal emperor suddenly appeared in front of me. He said that after 30,000 years, he finally found a heavenly fire from the mortal world. Zuyun was shocked again. Why does the majestic immortal emperor seek heavenly fire in the mortal world? Is it true, as Fen Tianyang said, that the heavenly fire in the immortal world was created and was not as good as the fire in the mortal world? So, are the ascended immortals stronger than the original immortals in the immortal world? With a thought, Zuyun released Fen Tianyan from the fire spirit bead. The fire flashed and he quickly transformed into a young man in his 20s before his eyes. Okay, you can go play by yourself. Just don't burn things here. Also, I want to practice. If you think of anything, just write it down, okay? Originally, Zuyun wanted to imprison him in the alchemy room, but after thinking about it, Fen Tianyan's intelligence was getting higher and higher, and it would not be good for him to be imprisoned, so he made such a decision. Then, Master, this place is a bit small. How about, you put me in the universe? Great universe world. Zuyun can understand these 4 words, but when they are connected together. That's right there. I saw Fen Tianyan pointing at the small courtyard leading to the pasture. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 908. Indeed, Zuyun wanted to practice the 5 elements incarnation technique, and Fen Tianyan could not stay in the fire spirit orb, lest he would be refined as well. It can be seen from his reaction before that the immortal mansion is so big, so staying there does make Fen Tianyan a little uncomfortable. But how could he know that the ranch was part of the great universe glazed mirror? And these elixirs have never been mentioned? Is it because they don't know, or a relationship that I didn't ask about? However, this is not important anymore. In this case, then send Fen Tianyan over. Okay, but don't disturb other living beings. Zuyun was not afraid that Sangu and the others would be frightened, but that he was afraid that he would act randomly and ruin the affairs of the ancestral tree and Muling sacred mountain. It's about the totem pole, but it's also about destiny. Master, I know, I won't run around. Fen Tianyan nodded repeatedly. That's good. Zuyun led Fen Tianyan into the pasture, then pointed in the opposite direction of the lake and said, just go over there. There should be no living creatures there. Yes, Master. Fen Tianyan bowed slightly and then walked away. Zuyun also returned to the immortal mansion and entered the cave to continue practicing the 5 elements incarnation technique. It's a good thing that he hasn't transformed all the spiritual power in the 5 spiritual beads yet, otherwise he might have lost a skyfire for no reason. Moreover, from what Tianhuo said, the immortal emperor specifically went to the lower realm to look for him. One can only imagine how strong Fen Tianyan would be after he returned to his original strength. When practicing, time passes very quickly. Unknowingly, several years have passed in the immortal mansion. I wish Yun will finally succeed. He slowly opened his eyes. In the past few years, he had finally mastered the method of incarnation, and at the same time he had a deeper understanding of the divine transformation stage. I thought that refining the golden spirit beads would allow him to break through to at least the middle stage of becoming a god. But this time, it didn't. Zuyun was a little surprised, but not surprising. He felt that his realm was higher, and there were 24 more lotus hearts in his body, which could store more chaos power. Under this condition, a single spiritual bead would be of little help to one's realm. Let's try the golden spirit incarnation first. The 5 elements incarnation technique uses spirit beads as its body, supplemented by Zuyun's spirit. Whichever spirit bead you use will become a clone of which attribute. A moment later, next to Zuyun, there was an identical version of himself. However, this incarnation is full of energy and looks more like a monk with a single golden spiritual root. There was even a faint golden light shining over his body. It's interesting. Zuyun opened his mouth, only to find that this incarnation almost spoke in unison with him. He was slightly stunned and realized that although he had mastered the method of incarnation, he had not yet learned how to control it. Like this, it requires persistent practice so that the separated soul will not be affected by the original soul. Practice 1 is still practice, practice 5 is still practice, why not summon all the incarnations? Zuyun's heart moved, and he summoned the remaining 4 series incarnations one after another. In an instant, there were 5 more of himself in front of him. This place is really small, so let them enter the pasture. The 5 incarnations are like 5 monks with single spiritual roots, and they have all reached the stage of divine transformation. However, this divine transformation stage is a bit weaker than the original body. Zuyun discovered that half of his soul was missing. And these 5 incarnations were divided into 5 equal parts from this half. It's not bad, after all, my soul is only that strong. Zuyun muttered and walked out of the cave, followed by a series of incarnations, which shocked all the immortals. But Zuyun had no time to say hello to them, but instead let his main body enter the pasture first. Hey, those avatars, can't even feel it. Originally, Zuyun could clearly feel that the 5 selves were connected in spirit and yet so close. But he entered the pasture first and was completely isolated. He pondered for a moment and said to himself, either, the part of this great universe glass mirror is not completely controlled by me, so it is disconnected from other clones. Or, I don't have enough control over the incarnation. When Zuyun was about to return to the immortal mansion, a light suddenly flashed in front of his eyes. Take a closer look and you will see that the incarnation of Jinling has come in. Almost at the same time, Zuyun extracted the thoughts of these incarnations at that moment from this incarnation. They knew that I wanted to test my control, so they only let the golden spirit incarnation come in after losing contact with me. It's interesting that they are so cautious. If even the golden spirit incarnation couldn't sense it, they would come in one after another. The incarnations of Zuyun and Jinling looked at each other and smiled, and the white light flashed in front of them again. The incarnation of the wood spirit. A moment later, the water spirit incarnation also came in. As more and more incarnations came in, Zuyun also had some information in his mind that he was originally missing. No, it shouldn't be said that it was missing, it should be said that he didn't know the information. For example, after these incarnations entered the ranch, what they saw and thought gradually became richer as they stood next to Zuyun. The word interesting kept floating around in Zuyun's mind. Until, all 5 incarnations entered the pasture. No matter what, the ranch can cut off the connection between me and the incarnation, why not let them develop freely here? Zuyun touched his chin. What he knew, these incarnations also knew. Even what you are thinking at this time is directly connected to these incarnations. No need to explain, Zuyun just dodged and left the ranch. To put it harshly, it means that they are left to fend for themselves. But in this ranch, no accidents will happen. 6 Zuyun went in, but only 1 came out, and all the elixirs were stunned again. Master, just now. Huang Longshu transformed into a human and pointed at the small pasture yard. That's a new spell I learned, called the 5 Elements Incarnation Technique, so I can separate 5 incarnations. Zuyun explained with a smile, then remembered the previous question and asked, Old Shu, do you know this pasture? Pasture. Hearing these 2 words, Huang Longshu couldn't help but be slightly startled and said, isn't that the other world? The other world. This time, it was Zuyun's turn to be dumbfounded. Master, you don't know. Huang Longshu was also confused and said, I always thought you knew. That is the core part of the great universe glazed mirror. Otherwise, why is there another space in the immortal mansion? This is the original immortal emperor. I have always thought to refine the world. Refining, world. The world of World Star. Zuyun was stunned. Yes, the immortal emperor has always wanted to refine a world in the immortal mansion, a world that belongs to him. Then, let that world evolve and develop freely, and then he can guide the living beings to believe in him, which can provide him with power. It's just that world has never been completed, and the glazed mirror of the universe has been destroyed, so this matter has ended without any problem. It turns out that even Huang Longshu knows. But, he thought he knew it too. Zuyun smiled bitterly and said, "Old Shu, when I got this mirror, I was just a young boy. How could I know so much?" Huang Longshu was also stroking his forehead, even more helplessly. "When you merged into the fragments of the medicine garden, I thought you knew it. Because the first thing you got was the immortal emperor's cave. The artifacts of the universe glazed mirror have been stored there. I saw it on the stone table in the cave, so I thought you knew it. Moreover, you also learned the immortal emperor's Wuji sword technique and learned it to great perfection. I thought you had completely obtained the immortal artifact." Zuyun was dumbfounded. So that was it? Then Huang Longshu didn't know that the weapon immortal left in the jade slip might only have a residual soul, and it was suddenly taken away by the weapon immortal wandering in the fairy world. Then, "Old Shu, how much do you know about Xianxia?" Not very familiar with it, Huang Longshu shook his head and said, "The Qi immortal is particularly arrogant and withdrawn. He usually looks down on us elixirs and looks condescending. If the immortal emperor hadn't been suppressing him, I'm afraid we would often be under the influence of the immortal emperor. His bullying. By the way, Fenchen and he are very difficult to deal with. They often fight in that world, but they are still restrained, otherwise Fenchen may break that world." Hearing this, Zuyun took a breath. "Fen Tianyan. So strong? Master, I'm afraid you don't know, right? Even though Fenchen is extremely weak now, the aura on his body also scares us." Zuyun remembered it, as if he once got a cauldron that could warm the spiritual fire, and just threw it in the open space next to the medicine garden. Fen Tianyan hid in it, scaring all the elixirs so much that they trembled. It seems that Fen Tianyan is really, as he said, not an ordinary sky fire. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 909. The news he received shocked Zuyun. After thinking for a long time, Zuyun returned to the cave and took out the piece of dead jade. "Old Shu, do you know what is going on? Will it have any impact on the universe glazed mirror? This weapon immortal, is dead." Huang Longshu was very surprised and puzzled at the same time. Because the immortal weapon is not around, the immortal weapon will become a dead weapon. But the universe glazed mirror didn't seem to be affected at all. Not dead. When Zuyun said this with certainty, the laughter of the previous Qi immortal could not help but resound in his mind. Not dead, then why is this jade dead? I don't know, Zuyun shook his head and said, if I knew, I wouldn't ask you. Huang Longshu thought for a while and said, I don't know the reason. Since I entered the immortal mansion, I have never left it, and the same is true for them. Maybe, if you ask Chaos Sword, he can know. Chaos Sword. Zuyun was surprised, but he quickly figured out that the Chaos Sword was undoubtedly an immortal sword, so there were also immortal weapons among them. But all this time, Chaos Sword has not had clear communication with him. At most, it was only in the early stages of refining Wanjian Mountain that the Chaos Sword had a sword cry. It never happened afterwards. Yes, Chaos Sword. Huang Longshu said, the immortal emperor has been practicing Wuji sword technique hard since then, so he carries the Chaos Sword all the year round. If you hadn't fused the fragments of the sword mountain into it, I almost forgot about it. Hey, Zuyun sighed, the Chaos Sword has never communicated with me. Maybe, my realm is not enough. He could understand that Chaos Sword, who had always been with the immortal emperor, might have his arrogance, and it was reasonable to ignore him, a person from the lower world. Being able to be driven by him is already pretty good. But that's all. Sun Qinyang's Wind Dragon Sword has several magical powers attached to it, but the Chaos Sword, which is an immortal sword, does not. Comparing the two, Zuyun felt uncomfortable again. You still have to get stronger quickly. Master, don't worry, Huang Longshu comforted with a smile, that was your incarnation just now, wasn't it? It's okay. Now in this immortal mansion, the power of chaos is particularly abundant. When I practice until the fruit on my crown is fully mature, then if you let the clones take it one after another, your strength will skyrocket. Master, you can eat me too. However, you can only eat 7 leaves, not the roots. Suddenly, Hongye also turned into a human form, dressed in colorful clothes, and said with a smile. There's me, there's me. Master, when I'm old enough, I'll be of great benefit to the soul. But I'm the opposite of Hongye. If you leave me a leaf, you can put it in the soil and it will come back to life. You can eat the rest. What about me? The little fat man seemed to have no confidence and said cautiously. Because he is a medicine from the mortal world, he doesn't know himself very well. You'd better make yourself fatter. Maybe you can save your master's life at a critical moment. Huang Longshu laughed and patted the little fat man's round head. Am I so useful? The little fat man's eyes suddenly lit up. What do you think? Huang Longshu said, the biggest role of ginseng is to replenish the qi needed by the body. Among them, blood ginseng is the most abundant. If you are old enough, as long as a person has a breath, it doesn't matter whether they are alive or dead, flesh and bones. Otherwise, how could the immortal emperor bring you from the mortal world into the immortal mansion? Zuyun was inexplicably moved. He remembered that Huang Longshu originally said that the ultimate goal of their training was to transform into a human being, and then be able to leave the immortal mansion to help him fight against the enemy. But at this time, it was all to enhance Zuyun's cultivation. Zuyun didn't know what the effects would be after eating them. But they know that if they eat them, they will definitely need to practice again. The magic of rainbow leaves lies in its 7 leaves. However, you only need to leave 1 leaf of Jingyuanko, and the rest can be eaten. Huanglong tree is relatively better and only eats fruits. But the number of times a yellow dragon tree can bear fruit is limited. As for blood ginseng, you need to take it whole to have the effect, Huang Longshu said. Thank you. Zuyun thanked him sincerely, but it made the immortal medicine people a little uncomfortable. Master, Shui Ginseng touched his head and said innocently, our medicines are originally meant for people to take. It would be great if you could leave some roots for me to live again. Zuyun touched his nose, as if. Indeed. Not to mention other monks, even he himself, when refining the elixir, didn't throw the entire elixir into the furnace. Don't think too much, just practice hard and leave the rest to me. Zuyun said with some shame. This time, Zuyun asked Huang Longshu everything he knew about the universe glazed mirror, which also opened his eyes. He even knew about the immortal platform. Every 1,000 years, the immortal platform will be opened in all the lower realms at the same time. And each time only one person, to be precise, one creature can successfully pass the test. Huang Longshu said that not every world star in the fairy world is the same as Zuyun's world. The world is also divided into strong and weak. If it exists for a long time, the world will naturally be stronger, because the passage of time and the evolution of life will cause the world star to change. Some weak and newly born world stars have not even developed human races. However, the ascension platform will still appear there. Even if a dog breaks into it, the dog will ascend to become an immortal. Zuyun curiously asked why the immortal world is like this, but Huang Longshu said he didn't know. Even the immortal emperor didn't know. Moreover, the immortal emperor is not the master of the immortal world. The entire immortal world, the immortal realm where the immortals live, is divided into 5 parts, namely, the east, south, west, north and center. The owner of the universe glass mirror is the southern immortal emperor. But all the immortal realms of the 5 immortal emperors are connected, and they only occupy a small part of the immortal world. Huang Longshu didn't know this. Because the immortal emperors often enter the immortal palace with injuries, and it can be seen that the injuries on their bodies are not caused by immortal power. This is also because Huang Longshu has lived longer, so he can know more or less. For example, Xianxia and others, it is not clear. Zuyun listened with great interest, but he only wrote down some relevant information, because he knew that it was still too early for him to go to the fairyland. Maybe, he would stay in this lower world for thousands of years. He even thought that the ascension platform would be held once every 1,000 years, and he could send Big Dog and Two Dog up together. And the premise is that he can find the specific location of the ascension platform. If so, they may become immortals earlier than me. Zuyun was naturally very happy. He thought that the two friends would need a lot of time to practice, but now, this problem has been solved because of the ascension platform. This also gave Zuyun the idea of returning to the Eastern mortal realm. Or, wait until the 5 elements incarnation technique is perfected, find the way back, and then bring them here. Several years in the immortal palace, and 2 months have passed in the outside world. The news of the 5 elements sect suddenly disappeared, which made the situation in Tianyi a little out of control. Originally, the more people came to find the ascension platform, the smaller the chance of others passing the test. The leak of the news also made those transcendent forces somewhat unable to cope, and they could only let these people focus on the area where the ascension platform was about to appear. Within a radius of 10 miles, it was crowded with people. The atmosphere was tense and warm. At this moment, all the hatreds were put aside. Because in front of being able to ascend in broad daylight, everything seemed less important. If the transcendent forces chose to take action again, it would inevitably affect their prestige, and even allow other forces in the outside world to unite with the 9 netherworld to strangle them to death. As long as the Green Mountains are there, there is no fear of running out of firewood. They just know the time and place of the ascension platform this time, give them a chance, and the next time will be our chance. A transcendent force said in the tribulation period. Yes, we have controlled the ascension platform for so many years, we should give them a share, otherwise we will not be able to calm down the public anger. Humph, now that the matter is over, I have to find a way to cause trouble for the 9 netherworld. All the tribulation crossing stages of the transcendent forces gathered together, and they plan to let the situation develop this time. Anyway, in the next 1,000 years, the ascension platform will appear in other places. Only they know. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 910. 1 month has passed, and in 1 day, it will be the day when Xianxia will be born. Everyone held their breaths and waited for more than 10 hours before immortal traces would descend from the sky and the one with the best destiny would be selected from among the thousands of creatures. At the same time, Zuyun also spent nearly a year in the immortal mansion. In order not to interrupt the cultivation of the 5 incarnations, he never entered the pasture. Because once inside, his soul will be connected with the other 5 bodies. This is what Zuyun doesn't want to see. These days, he is not doing nothing, but he is practicing Chaos Fist. The 24 ways of boxing correspond to the 24 constellations. Zuyun has practiced them clearly. The only thing is that I don't know if it is a coincidence, because there are also 24 lotus hearts. He only had a brief understanding of the 24 constellations. He had read books on astronomy and geography in Yesuanhua's collection. Originally, he thought about having the opportunity to go among mortals again and understand their views on the stars in the night sky, but when he learned that the stars he looked at were all stars in the fairy world, he suddenly put an end to this idea. Is it a coincidence? Zuyun didn't think so, because the 24 constellations were mentioned by the immortal in the 5 elements of Chaos Sutra. What does this mean? This shows that there are indeed 24 constellations in the immortal world. Huang Longsha never mentioned it, which means Huang Longsha didn't know about it either. Perhaps, this is a very secret existence, and only by going to the fairy world to understand it in person can you know the true situation. Therefore, Zuyun did not delve into this, but secretly remembered it in his heart. The Chaos Fist is almost done. It can be sent and received freely. It is much easier to use than the Chaos Palm. However, when meeting monks with a higher level than myself, you still have to rely on the Chaos Palm. Zuyun has practiced many times and is well aware of the power of Chaos Fist. Next, it's time to go to the great universe world. Zuyun changed the name. Since this is part of the Dazhu glazed mirror, calling it a ranch would be too disrespectful. When he arrived at the small courtyard, he flashed and appeared in the world of Dazhu. But as soon as his body appeared, some messy information suddenly appeared in his mind. The amount of information made Zuyun's mind feel like it was hit by a heavy object, and it took a long time to slowly digest it. After coming back to his senses, Zuyun suddenly smiled bitterly. It is true that the 5 incarnations are together, but during this year, they unexpectedly had a sudden idea to merge the 5 incarnations into one and then practice. Having your own thoughts is very Zuyun. He felt that if he were here, he might have the same thought. The incarnation changed from 5 bodies to 1, and after a moment, the 2 Zuyun were face to face. The aura revealed by the avatar's body is no different from his own. Even all the information Zuyun knew in his mind was transferred to his incarnation. Originally, Zuyun's body retained half of his soul, and the 5 incarnations shared the other half equally. But now that they are integrated into one body, their avatars are no different from themselves. The difference may be that my body has mastered the Chaos Fist, but my incarnation only learned it through memory. The body is still very unfamiliar and needs constant practice. All in all, Zuyun's original destiny is stronger than his incarnation. Of course, with Zuyun's memory, it is quite easy for the avatar to quickly practice Chaos Fist. Because the incarnation will find solutions to any problems encountered during the cultivation process. Interesting. The word appeared in Zuyun's mind at the same time. After a while, Zuyun decided to let the avatar go out and give it a try. If it were possible. It's not a bad thing to find your way back to the East Mortal realm and let the incarnation go for it while the main body stays in the Immortal mansion. Thinking of this, Zuyun decided to stay in the world of Dazhu for the time being and let the avatar leave. The incarnation appeared in the Immortal mansion, everything was as usual, and even the Huang Longshu were indistinguishable. If you go out and take a look, you don't know what this body will be like in the outside world. The avatar murmured, and with a thought, he immediately appeared at the bottom of the sea. The sea water surges, and the incarnation shares the memory with Zuyun. After knowing it, fly to the top of the sky to see how high it can fly. But just when the incarnation was about to use the water escape technique, a faint colorful reflection immediately attracted his attention. Hey, this is, Diwu glazed mirror. The incarnation couldn't help being startled, and subconsciously touched his chest. Empty. The cosmic glazed mirror that was originally embedded in Zuyun's chest, like a heart-protecting mirror, now hangs alone on the bottom of the sea and has not returned to the incarnation. It's strange. The incarnation took the cosmic glazed mirror over, thought about it, and entered it again. After appearing in the cave, the incarnation rushed to the world of the universe without stopping. Hey, you're back so soon. Is there danger outside? Feeling the sudden appearance of the avatar, Zuyun couldn't help but be stunned. Then he learned the situation from the shared memory and couldn't help but feel surprised. But he soon figured it out. Because what is bound to the cosmic glazed mirror is your own body. Although the incarnation is no different from himself, it happens later. Even though the blood on his body is the same as his own, and his body is the same, after all, he relies on the spirit bead. That should be it. The main body and the incarnation are in the same universe, so the initiative lies in the main body. Zuyun chose to let the incarnation stay, and he left the immortal mansion. The moment he left, Zuyun touched his hand to his chest. Sure enough, this time the cosmic glazed mirror appeared on the chest perfectly. "You're already here, why don't I fly up to the sky to have a look, wait until I hit the south wall, and then go back to find the way back to the East Mortal realm?" After making the decision, Zuyun used the water escape technique and quickly escaped towards the water. Not long after, he jumped out of the water and flew straight into the sky. As he flew, he sighed secretly in his heart. Forgot something important. Because the incarnation relies on the 5 spirit beads, there are no spirit beads in his body at this time. As a result, the speed of his water escape technique was affected. However, overall, the incarnation has more advantages, because it is equivalent to an extra life. If the incarnation is divided into 5 parts, it will have 5 more lives. In contrast, without the water control brought by the spirit bead, this is not a loss-making business. Zuyun was very fast, but he was still a little uncomfortable with his soul being divided into half, so I stopped. In addition to restoring his soul, he would also replenish the consumed chaos power in Xianxia. It was almost dusk when we flew out. Despite his speed, he flew to the top of the moon without being blocked. It's strange. Is the sky in this world so high? Zuyun was secretly suspicious. If he was flying in the East Mortal realm at this speed, he might have flown from the Yasha realm to the Peepa realm. However, there is no end to the upward direction. Above the head, there is nothing but emptiness. It was late at night, and the sky was filled with stars. This reminded Zuyun of the great formation of stars, and then he thought of Tang Liwen. "And Tang, will be safe, right? Even if Master Zhang Dao returns to Tianyi, I believe that with Ant Tang's ability, there should be no problem in hiding." Tang Liwen mainly practiced the formation Dao, and his immediate combat ability was not strong, but he also practiced Talisman Dao, which could erase this shortcoming. Tang Liwen's talisman ability is not weak. Perhaps, she also possesses some weird talismans, which allows her to escape and live safely in other places in Tianwei. By the way, Ant Tang created the star movement formation. The changes in the formation are no different from the starry sky, maybe she can know something about the stars. The formation is in harmony with the way of heaven. If she doesn't understand this astronomy, it is impossible to create such an exquisite formation. No, when the incarnation goes to the East Mortal realm, I have to go to Tianyi to find Ant Tang. Building. Thinking of this, Zuyun couldn't help but raise his head. After flying for a long time, it was impossible to give up halfway, right? Before returning to the East Mortal realm, this matter must be settled first. Zuyun's eyes flashed, and he continued to use the power of chaos, flying rapidly towards the direction of the moon. The higher the altitude, the lower the temperature. Gradually, some frost condensed on Zuyun's eyebrows. It would be like this when he was in the state of becoming a god. You can imagine how high he flew. If it weren't for the full moon that was always above his head, Zuyun would have thought that he was in the void of the universe. But it wasn't until the moon set in the west that Zuyun realized that the sky was about to light up. As soon as the sky breaks, the stars will disappear, so how does he know that he has broken out of this world?